The man who crossed the finish line first rode 11 miles of the race in a car. The man who got the gold medal was doped with rat poison. The man who finished fourth stopped halfway to steal apples and take a nap. This isn't a comedy sketch. This is the 1904 Olympic Marathon, quite possibly the worst organized sporting event in human history. Every minute of this race manages to get worse and stranger and funnier, right up to the finish line that almost nobody reached. The setting: St. Louis, 1904. America's first Olympics. Though calling them international was generous, most of the world stayed home, and the vast majority of athletes were Americans. The games were bolted onto the side of the World's Fair, and the marathon was the showcase. 32 runners towed the line, a distance of just under 25 miles, on a blistering August afternoon, 91 degrees in the shade. The course: unpaved country roads, 7 hills, and one more hazard nobody planned for: the automobiles. Officials, doctors, and journalists followed the runners in cars, churning up choking clouds of dust the runners had to breathe the whole way. And the water? There basically wasn't any. The chief organizer had a theory he wanted to test: purposeful dehydration, the idea that drinking during exercise was bad for you. So along 25 miles of scorching road, the runners found essentially a well or two, and nothing else. It was less a race than an experiment conducted on human beings. Now meet the runners of the 1904 Olympic Marathon, because this is where the story becomes legend. There was Felix Carbajal, a Cuban mailman who raised the money for his own passage, promptly lost every cent of it gambling in New Orleans, and hitchhiked the rest of the way to St. Louis. He arrived at the starting line in his street clothes. A fellow Olympian grabbed shears and cut his long trousers into shorts on the spot. Around the halfway mark, Carbajal got hungry, so he detoured into an apple orchard, ate his fill. Rotten or green apples, accounts differ, developed stomach cramps, lay down by the road, and took a nap. He got up and finished fourth. There were 2 Tswana runners from South Africa, the first Black Africans ever to compete at an Olympic Games, in town as part of the World's Fair exhibits. One of them, Len Taunyen, was chased a full mile off the course by wild dogs. He fought free of the dogs, found the road again, and finished 9th. There was William Garcia of California, who swallowed so much of the car-churned dust that it tore the lining of his stomach. He was found unconscious on the roadside with a severe hemorrhage and nearly perished. He survived, but it was the dust of the course itself that put him there. At the front of the 1904 Olympic Marathon were 2 men, and neither one's finish should ever have counted. Fred Lorz hit the wall early, savage cramps at 9 miles. So he did the sensible thing by his lights. He flagged down a car and rode in comfort for 11 miles, waving at spectators. When the car broke down, a refreshed Lorz hopped out and jogged the last 5 miles into the stadium. First across the line, to thunderous applause, the crowd went wild. The president's daughter, Alice Roosevelt, posed for a photograph with the champion. It was going beautifully until eyewitnesses started pointing at the car. Confronted, Lorz shrugged that it was all a practical joke. The Olympic Committee was not amused, disqualified, and banned for life. Though the ban, like everything else in this story, didn't stick, it was lifted in time for Lorz to win the Boston Marathon the very next year. Thomas Hicks was leading the honest runners of the 1904 Olympic Marathon. By the 10-mile mark, he was begging for water, and his trainers refused him, sponging his mouth with warm water instead, in the spirit of the experiment. What they gave him instead, 7 miles from home, was a cocktail of strychnine sulfate, rat poison, a powerful stimulant in small doses, mixed with egg whites and later, brandy. It was the first recorded doping in Olympic history, and it was perfectly legal. It also very nearly finished what the heat started. Hallucinating, gray-faced, barely conscious, Hicks staggered into the stadium and was carried across the finish line by his handlers, his feet shuffling along the track beneath him, which, under the rules of the day, counted as finishing. Gold medal. Doctors worked over him for some time before he was out of danger. He never raced a marathon again. Only 14 of the 32 starters finished at all. Still the lowest completion rate an Olympic marathon has ever recorded. And yet, somehow, the marathon survived. Officials briefly considered dropping it forever. Instead, they fixed it. Water stations, standards, rules. The farce of St. Louis is the reason the modern marathon is the serious, sacred thing it is today. That's the fact. The worst race ever run taught the Olympics how to be the Olympics, and it gave us a champion on rat poison, a mailman with an apple stomachache, and a winner who took the highway. What the facts? Next time, on the very night Chicago burned, a far bigger fire erased an entire town, and you've never heard of it.